people is at Alex's workshop, so we can get more intimate here in this room instead. So there'll be more room for asking questions, and maybe you can even suggest to me what we want to do now. Should we build the small application from my talk with the city component, first using modules, and then converting to scan, then converting to component render modules and feature render modules? You want to see that? Okay. So, because we're on some internet connection, I don't know the speed. I basically just ran NgNew, enable Ivy, a minimal app, and just remove a lot of boilerplate, really. Then I went into the directory and ran ngupdate, Angular core, version next, just to be on the newest version, because why not? So then we're in the 8.1.0, next version 2. So this is just a regular Angular CLI app without a lot of the extra stuff. So first, let's make sure that it actually runs. It'll be there. There we go. Okay, that's our basic app. And so we have the app component. Let's remove everything. This will just be a lot of live coding, and you're welcome to ask questions. Just remove a lot of stuff. Remove the template. Remove the property. Remove the styles. Now we have the module. We can't get rid of that, but let's do the city component. I don't like the Angular CLI, so I'll write it by hand. Sorry. I don't trust technology. Okay. Yeah, so it starts out with a simple button, which has a title, and that title can be in an input property. And then we have some content that's conditionally rendered depending on another property. So we'll bind the hidden property to is expanded, and then we'll create that local UI state is expanded, and it'll be closed by default. So yeah, that's the whole template. Mr. Character, what's that? Where? The title? Oh, there. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Great. Okay. So, on the click of the button, We'll have a click handler. There we go. So, what else? We need some content, so we'll do some content prediction. Very simple. And now we need a module, I guess. Yeah, okay, so a lot of time you would just, if you're doing simple apps, you would just add it here, then we don't need another module. But something's not right. Oh, I always do trailing commas, but Angular CLI does not. There we go. Okay, so we should be able to use the CP component inside the app component now. So, and let's add some content. Let's build a message. Okay, let's see if it works. Oh, probably need a title for the button. I did something wrong. What's that?
Toggle should be like in the sequence row. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thanks. Okay. So, but that message should really be hidden. There we go. Okay, so now this is all the CP component does without any special styling. It just hides content, so it's similar to the, what's it called, the details HTML element or something like that. Okay, so now we have a basic view engine app. Let's convert it to scams instead. So first let's move it out of the main app module declarations. Everything will break, so we do a CP module. Well, let's do it inside of the same file. So now we're building a scam. So it should only declare as a CP component. It should only export CP component, and if the CP component has some dependencies, it does not currently, we'll add some in a minute. We list them here, but there's nothing there, so there we go. Now we have a CP scam, and so we use the CP component and the app component, so we need to import it inside here, CP module. And let's see if everything still works. It does. Okay, so that's the scam. But now, to take the next step, we need to get rid of bootstrapping, because that we can't get, we have to get rid of the module inside of here in the main file. We're always bootstrapping a module. So let's break everything. So this is where we have this special symbol, which means it's internal. You're not supposed to use it, but let's do it anyways. And we can rename it up here in the imports. And if I can spell, and we can assume that it'll be publicly available at some time in the future. No guarantees from me, but we want to use it, so we'll render the add module, since that's the root one. We'll get rid of this, we don't need all of that. Get rid of environment, get rid of module, all of this. Let's get rid of the platform. Okay. So, let's see what we've got. Okay, now something's broken. And that's because ngZone is gone, so we have no change detection being triggered. So, inside the app component, there's not anything changing, there's no local UI state changing, the only property is static. So it's no problem here for the app component, but we actually got rid of the app module. Let's delete it. And the thing will still run without errors, and there is actually a component in here, so it's not totally broken, the application, but change detection is not being triggered. Everyone okay so far? Okay. And the thing here, this weird symbol you can't hit on your keyboard, so just do autocomplete. Which button is that? Control space, I think. And it'll be here somewhere in this giant mess. Okay, so I'll just pick anyone with that symbol. I can copy and paste that so that I can get to this function, and then I'll rename it. So that's how we get access to that one. Okay, we have the app component, and now we need to manage the change detection ourselves in City component. So this is where we're gonna need the mark 30. Also from Angular core. So it's the same kind of weird symbol. We'll rename it to create an alias. And we pass the component instance itself. So the this is referring to the component instance. So normally in View Engine, you would have to trigger or to actually run change detection, you would inject the change detector ref, and there would be an instance of that specific to each component. This function is a global function, so you can pass any component and Angular will figure out where in the component tree it is and how to run the change detection dirty checking cycle. So it's a bit different from what we're used to. But now, after changing this local UI state property, change detection should be triggered. Let's see, I hope it is. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And now we have this, we're left with this scam. But I really want to get rid of Angular modules. So let's convert it to a component. Oh, you know what? I forgot about something. We did not only have the SID component, we also had the capitalized pipe and a button directive. So let's add that as well. So there's some more code to look at. There we go. And what do we want with the button? We want a click event. That's all it does at this point. Nothing fancy. But yeah. It's just a very simple directive to keep this application simple. So let's actually use this directive instead of a native button, let's have a myClick event. And then, yeah, I did something wrong here. I need to make it an attribute selector. And I need to add a host listener. How is this? It's like this, right? Something disappeared. Okay. Does this look right? Just some simple directive. We can add anything in here and click listener. Good, so let's use it city component. So now we're not using native event listeners. Instead we're using the directive. And let's see if there's anything here. No, it broke, okay. Okay, we need to, this is where we need to link them together. So, okay, let's say this is if this was a scam, we would need to create another module for the button directive, but I don't want to do that. Let's make it a component render module instead. This is where in the city component, its component render module will add the button directive. There we go. Now they're linked together, but you won't get an error, so you have to be aware of these things yourself. Everything works now. So now let's take the next step is to go to instead of component render module, we want a feature render module. So we only have one module per bundle, and right now we only have one bundle. So we need to reintroduce an app module, because that'll be the only one in this bundle. Okay. So now, instead of having a module per component, let's just take these declarations and put them in an array instead. There we go. So now the Angular magic is gone. But to use the city component, we need to declare its dependencies. All of its declarable dependencies. And I need to export it. So we import it from the city component module, the ES module. And that's all it needs. It should work now. We got rid of the component render module, and we're left with one app render module in the main model. Did I mess something up? Guess so. Oh. I shouldn't need to spread it. That's Angular should take care of that. But why is there some error here? Let's just run it again. Because yeah, this is an array, so normally you wouldn't put in an array, but Angular can take care of that. It'll unpack the array, it'll remove duplicates. So now the error message is gone, and everything works again, and we get the custom event handler from the button directive. Okay, so this is a very simple app, and the only other thing I added, just to have everything in there, was the capitalized pipe. But I don't know if we want to do that. Should we try to do some dynamic rendering instead? Or do you want to add the capitalized pipe? Okay, dynamic rendering. Any questions about these render modules?
Can you show main.js?
The main.js, okay. It's very simple.
So we still full render component for APP component, but we initialized APP model as well. And it wasn't used for essential rendering.
Okay, so there is one module now, but one NgModule. It's actually not used anywhere. What's that?
So for now, we do render components, so APP render module is not used.
The render module, no, it's not used by any, so there's no import of it anywhere else. But we do import this ECMAScript module, this file, the app component where the module is, and because we import that, that'll actually go tell the Angular compiler to link everything together.
So Angular compiler anyway uses APP render model?
Yes, the compiler looks at it at the compile time. Oh, by the way, now that we got rid of Angular zone, NgZone, we can also leave it out of the polyfills. And things should still work. Yep, there we go. Okay, so yeah, it is a hack. But now we only have one module, and we don't even use that module. Only Angular itself uses it. So we don't have to import it anywhere. The only thing we need to import is the app component, and that's why VS Code is complaining, because, yeah, I don't know. Why is it complaining? But, well, it'll probably be complaining here because it's not declared, I don't know, some tooling issue. This is experimental. So the main module is very simple, but if you go into advanced use cases, you need to do a lot of other hooking up, because there's a second option here. You can pick the host element on the page. So you can, right now it's linked to the index, this tag in the index HTML, because it matches the selector in here, but you could bootstrap it to any DOM element. So that's the host part here. There's also host features. That's if you want lifecycle hooks for the app component, like ng on init and other hooks. So there's a whole bunch of them here. Actually, to do everything properly, you would need to use some DOM sanitizer, and to get that, you would need to add the platform. So there's a lot of things you can do differently in advanced scenarios. This is very simple for now, and it's only to experiment with all of these techniques and see how it is to build an application without Angular modules, or mostly without Angular modules. This is the closest we can get. In the future, if we get the proposal, instead of having an array here, it would look like this. We would have the array here. So it's very similar. The main thing is we import the declarable dependencies from other files. So because we import it, it's part of the bundle. So the components and the directives and the pipes we don't import anywhere, they will be left out of the bundle. So, and that's the similar thing that may happen if we get the depth property instead. Yes?
Where we can import this file? Because right now the transition with depth means that we don't need import to the output module, but rather it was right?
Why we import it? Okay, we import it to list it here in the CB depths, and these CB depths will be put into this feature render module.
Yeah, and after proposal, after this property, that same depth, do we need to do the same import to the anywhere from the component?
No, okay, so let's say that this was okay.
Because this seems like a magic, because we don't use it, but we need to use in a jet.
So let's say we had the depth property. It would look like this. No, it doesn't need to depend on itself, so it will only look like this, and we wouldn't even need this module anymore, so we didn't need to export the CB depths. So this is what I want in the future. I wanted to get rid of even that last render module and have it like this instead. But that would mean we would have to add the depths here and then reference the CB component, so the import would be back. So this is what it probably can look like, but you can't use it today. It's not in any of the code.
So
but
this is basically, I suppose, is in Angular 2. So this is section depth. In Angular 2, is there the exact same section almost, and we import all NgFolds, NgIfs, and such.
oh, in Angular Core, yes, it will be. Well, it's a proposal for the component decorator, but it's not added anywhere in the code. So it's only at an idea stage. So it's only, for example, Rob Wormel spoke about it in his ngconf talk. He also spoke about Angular elements with Ivy, but he also showed this depth property both for components and also for Angular elements with some new proposed API for them as well. So if we get that, you see here we could have no Angular modules at all, but we don't have the depth property yet. So we need to go back. And we need to list its declarable dependency, but we also need to list itself so that it gets linked up in this feature render module. So inside of this array is a reference to the CB component and the button directive. So these two will, this is basically what happens when I reference that array. So I could get rid of this and have that thing instead, because that's what's happening under the hood. But then you wouldn't be able to reuse this component in other places. You would need to know every single declarable dependency. So the CB component and all of its dependencies, it's only a single one in this simple example, but we don't want to do that. So we want to reuse the dependencies list instead. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is everything about scams, about component render modules, about feature render module. Yes?
I have a question. Will it work actually with the lazy mode routing?
Yeah, that's the thing I left out because no one's doing this yet. So routing, I haven't figured that out yet. But to do it, you would have to lazy load some route configurations and add them to router. On the router service, it's just called router, but it's a service. There's this reset config. So you would have to lazy load, listen to URL changes, lazy load a list of routes, which imported other modules or other ECMAScript modules with components, and then you would have to add that to the router configuration yourself. So I'm sure it can be done. I just haven't done it yet. I wanted to get these other basic things right before that. And the other thing I left out of the presentation is you also need, so right now we don't even have an injector. So we wouldn't be able to inject any dependency, but we could create one. There we go. No providers, no parent injector, but, oh, how is it? It's like, there, okay. The parent injector will be the null injector, and we'll call it root. So now we have a root injector. Isn't that right? Got 3? I was sure there were 3 arguments. Let's look again. Parent injector. Oh, it's an object. Okay. So, isn't it? Everything's going wrong right now, but injector create. Now the parenthesis is gone. You know what? Let's create it up here. I just want to name it. Options. Nothing? Okay. Okay, I'll not name it. It doesn't matter anyways, but now we have an injector, right? There we go. Now we have an injector. So now we can, if there's no more errors.
We didn't delete the depths.
Okay. Oh. Yeah. Right. You've been sitting waiting to tell me that all along? Just watching me fail? Okay, thank you. So now we got an injector, now we can actually start injecting stuff. But the thing is, this is not how you're supposed to use Angular yet. So even if we would create some service here, let's create a dynamic service. This will not work. So this points to a very specific root injector that is part of the top level module, the app module, and we don't have any modules, so this will not work because we're not using Angular like that. So instead we would actually have to provide it in here, and normally you could just list it here, but in the main file it has to be some specific format. So we have to list it like this, because normally you could just write the class itself, but that's actually syntactic sugar. That's recompiled by Angular, but out in the main file you're not allowed to do that. So now we could actually inject this dynamic service, and this thing will not work anyway, so let's remove it. And let's just try to inject it. in the app components, because why not? Let's create a method. Okay, let's see if we can actually inject. Yes, there it is. So now we can use dependency injection as well. But all of the normal thing you're used to with tree-shakeable providers, that's some Angular compiler instruction. So it won't work here because we're not using Angular modules, and everything evolves around Angular modules right now. So I have to wait for the Angular team to, even to accept that this is something we might want to do. So that's why we need to give our vote to the component proposal, so that they could figure out how to make it work with routing, lazy loading, dependency injection, tree-shakeable providers, because otherwise we have to do all of it ourselves, and it'll become pretty complicated very fast. Okay, so say we actually wanted some dynamic rendering. That's one of the main features of tree-shakeable components, other than not using Angular modules. So with Ivy, every component is actually an entry component. So every component can be passed into render component. You noticed in the main file, we just passed render component, the app component. We could also say render components with the Cibi component. All Ivy components are entry components, even if you use modules. As soon as you use Ivy, every component is an entry component. So that's something new, and you can do that with modules. But I want to get rid of the modules. But they are related things, and it's a feature of Ivy that every component is an entry component, since it has the component factory in the component class static properties. So let's say we wanted to add some, what's the time? I have like 10 minutes left or so. You don't know? Okay. I'll just continue. 5 minutes? Okay, let's do. Let's do a component. Yeah, I'm just trying to make it work pretty quick. So what's the trick here? The trick is we don't want to reference this class in any other part of our app. Then it'll be dynamic. So let's just load it in here, and we'll say we'll have a div. And we'll fetch it in here, and it'll be a static query. We'll read the element ref, and GS is not happy, is it? Decorators are not valid here. Oh, I need to add a property. Okay. Container ref. Okay. Oh, this is the module, which is the root module, so we can't have on init here. Oh god, unless we do some magic in the main file. What is it? Post features, and we need that special symbol. Life cycle hooks feature. Where's the error? Comes from host. I don't care. This should work. No? Okay. Okay. I don't have time to find the actual code for this thing, so... What's that? It's an array? Oh, nice. Thank you, Wasim. There we go. Now we can use ng on init in the app component, which means well, I want to use this dynamic service, but let's keep it simple since we're short on time. We'll dynamically import this ECMAScript module, which was this. There's no module, only a component. And this is where this doesn't always work, so let's call it the component. Right. Oh, is it? Why can't I remember this? Okay, well, the trick is not to mention the component by name, but let's, if you want to make it generic, but let's do it anyways, because of time. So now we have that component. So we can take the container ref, the native element, and so normally in Angular you can't touch the DOM, you always have to use the renderer, but with Ivy you can if you're only doing web development and you don't care about server-side rendering, and I don't right now, so I'll just use native DOM APIs. Now I need the element, so let's create a host element. Again, I'm touching the DOM. And what was awesome dynamic? Let's call it that, but we can use anything here. Now we just need to bootstrap. Need that special symbol, which is in here. So take the component class and add it to the host element, and all the complaining is gone, I hope. There we go. Okay, so this is actually loaded in a separate bundle. There is no Angular module, there's only a component, and it's lazy loaded because of dynamic imports. But before you clap too much, this only works on a development server. To make it work in production, you would have to combine it with system.js imports for now, or some of these other techniques that you can use for dynamic imports right now. So I'll share these links, and you can ask me questions about how to combine this code with actual runtime, dynamically rendered, arbitrary components. Okay? Thank you for coming.